Resident Evil Requiem is here, and there's a lot to it. There are some things the game doesn't tell you, and some stuff you just gotta figure out along the way. So consider these some beginner tips. Also, keep in mind, we're trying to keep this as spoiler light as possible. We're not gonna be showing big cutscenes or revealing story details or anything like that, just early gameplay tips and stuff that's easy to miss. We got 10 things, so let's get started off with number 10. There's actually a better handgun early on that's pretty easy to miss. So after you finally get into the main part of the game playing as Grace at the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center, one of the first things you do is explore the West Wing area. Now, one of the early rooms you're forced to sneak through early on is this iconic bar and lounge spot. Now, when you get in there, it's overwhelming. It seems like it has a lot of enemies that you're supposed to just sneak around, but there is actually a reason to come back to this place. It's not marked on your map. Items actually only show up on your map, it seems, if you have clear sight lines on them, but if you look behind the bar area, you can actually find a second handgun, the SNS M232, which is Grace's personal handgun that she starts out at the beginning of the game with. This thing is essentially just a straight upgrade over the standard pistol you get, and one of the few rare alternative weapons you can even get playing as Grace. It's easy to miss, but not actually all that difficult to get once you're capable of cleaning this area out, so don't miss out on it. Next at number 9, they did show off one of these big iconic monsters in the trailers. Definitely one of the more grotesque things we've seen that you encounter is the appropriately named Chunk. This big fat zombie guy thing. He essentially blocks certain hallways in the game. He's so big that he struggles to fit through doors, and he fills and blocks entire hallways. He's a real nuisance, and he makes certain sections of the game a lot more difficult when he's wandering around because there's not really any way to get by him. It seems like you just gotta either wait him out or try to sneak around him, which is always tense and risky, especially when you're dealing with other zombies at the same time. So if you have the spare ammo for it, just make things easier for yourself and get rid of this guy. Now, our first thought, and probably something a lot of other people might assume, is that this guy cannot be killed, because there's also that big haunted girl lady thing roaming around, the stalker type enemy, and she can't be killed using conventional weaponry, but Chunk can actually die, just like everything else. All you need are 3 Requiem shots, and he's gone for good. Just lure him over to a door, and he's easy prey. You shoot him 3 times with Leon's big gun, and he's finished. You can also use the hemolytic injector that you use to sneak up behind zombies and stealth kill them, making them explode, but you're gonna have to craft a few of them because he takes a couple of stabs. Either way, you can kill him. That's the thing here. For your trouble, you get an achievement, a special charm called the I Spy charm that increases your chances of surviving fatal damage. All that, and you don't have to deal with this guy again, so it's a win-win. Especially because when you're wandering around this center, like he's got the habit of showing up at the worst possible times. Next at number 8, switch to third person to make stealth easier. Now, Grace is the character that defaults to first person view when you play as her, as opposed to Leon, but in some ways, her sections of the game are a little easier when you play them in third person. Her segments place a higher emphasis on some stealth and crouching around and avoiding detection, which becomes a whole lot easier when you just have the wider field of view afforded to you when you're playing a game over the shoulder and moving the camera around. Overall, it's a lot easier to sneak around in third person, whether you're trying to avoid patrolling zombies or stay away from that big girl stalker thing. You know, third person is the easier way to play Grace's segments, at least when you're specifically sneaking. In other ways, third person actually is a little harder. Enemies are generally more aggressive in third person mode, it seems, and maybe this is like an us thing, but having different viewpoints for each character is a very obvious reminder that Grace and Leon play very differently, which you'd think would be obvious, but when playing as Grace in third person, you know, you might end up trying to parry attacks even though she can't actually do that like Leon. One other thing to keep in mind is that while it's easier to spot enemies around corners when in third person, enemies have better awareness as well and are faster to become aggressive if they spot you, so it kind of goes both ways. Ultimately, it's more of a personal preference what viewpoint you go with, because both have their positives and negatives, but if we're specifically talking about stealth and avoiding enemies, then the third person view gives you more of an eagle eye and it is easier. But if you want to be scared, if you want to be spooked out, play in first person because it's scarier. Now at number 7, there is one absolutely essential upgrade. On the first floor of the West Wing, there's the parlor area. It's where you find the East Wing key, but most importantly, it's the place where you can spend antique coins you collect to unlock useful upgrade items. There are enough coins in this area to get all this stuff, but by far the most essential item here is the override manual, which increases the blood collector's capacity by 50. It costs 6 coins, so it's not cheap, but this should be one of the first things you focus on getting, because without it, you cannot craft the permanent upgrade items like steroids. To make them, you need more than 100 blood, and you can't carry 100 blood without the capacity upgrade. You do not get any other blood capacity upgrades in the game. They never give you a freebie, this is it. So you either get the upgrade here, or you never get it, and your inventory will be clogged with injectors that can never actually be used to create steroids or stabilizers to upgrade Grace even more. And while we're at it, when it comes to what upgrade you should make, I think the stabilizers are 100% the better option. Way more noticeable. Look, steroids increase your max health, but as Grace, you're more about avoiding damage as much as possible. And with stabilizers, your aim is improved and your guns do more damage. And while the difference isn't huge, it is a noticeable improvement after a while. Next at number 6, just a quick note, they brought back the quick turn. Look, it's not explained anywhere in game, like in the tutorial or anything, so you gotta just figure it out. But like a lot of previous Resident Evil games, there's a quick turn, and it works exactly the way you'd expect, and it's very useful. When you're playing as either Grace or Leon, just hold back on the stick and then press circle or B to perform a quick turnaround. It's not something you need to do all that often anymore compared to like the original Resident Evil 4, but it is still a very useful ability to have in the few instances you need to create a lot of distance between you and an enemy. It's great to just do an about face, turn, and run away. And sometimes as Leon, guys will come up behind you, and the ability to spin right around and face them is incredibly useful. For Resident Evil veterans, obviously this is a no-brainer, but the game does not tutorialize this, so we figured we'd let some of you newer guys know. Now at number 5, after a while, picking up the various glass bottles dotted around might seem pointless, but there's a very good reason why you should be hoarding these things. At first, all they're really good for is to throw them as a distraction. Now it seems like that's their only purpose, but near the end of Grace's first section of the game, you get the ability to craft Molotov cocktails with, you guessed it, those glass bottles. These things immediately go from kind of worthless little distractions to some of the most valuable items in the game. And by the time this recipe is unlocked, you may have breezed through a lot of bottles or thrown them to try and distract enemies during stealth. So it's better off to pick them up as much as possible, save them, maybe throw them in the storage bin, because eventually you're gonna be tossing a bunch of Molotov cocktails, and it's pretty awesome. The more the better, because they are really effective for certain enemies. Now at number 4, when you're playing as Leon, you can eventually upgrade your weapons, and for the most part, these are pretty straight improvements with no downsides. Well, except for the dot sights, which increase your precision while aiming by a lot, but they force you to aim down the sights when using those guns, in a first-person view and everything. So like, it's understandable when a sniper rifle does it, but when you have to go from third person to first person to aim a pistol, sometimes it can feel wrong, and you know, depending on player preference.
Get Brentwood locked down.
What? Is it something to do with Victor?
Yeah.
You can, of course, just take off the upgrades, but there's actually a better way. Just go into the options and you can actually change the settings instead. The game actually lets you disable first-person aiming when using guns. For us personally, that's the preferred option. It's just easier to see what's going on during a chaotic action sequence if the camera stays in third person. This toggle is on the first page of the options menu. Just like scroll down the basic options list until you see it right there. Now, what's great about this thing is that it doesn't disable the first-person aiming for sniper rifles, just for the dot sight weapon. So if you still need to hit something from far away with precision, you can still do that. It's not something everyone is going to want to change. Some people will like the added precision, but we're just glad that the option is there for people that prefer it the other way. Now at number 3, when you're playing as Grace, you'll find knives around, and you even get the chance to craft some at a point. These things are very useful to have to defend yourself against a zombie grabbing you and biting you, and make a surprisingly powerful tool for killing a zombie when they're down as well. But one thing you really need to keep an eye on is their durability meter. Now, unlike with Leon in the RE4 remake, when these knives break, they can't be repaired. Once they're used up, they're gone for good, that's it. That wouldn't matter so much, but knives have one other extremely useful purpose. You can actually break them down for scrap, which then can be turned into bullets for crafting. At first, you might be tempted to just break down every knife you get immediately for scrap because you're desperate for something, but don't do that. Instead, use them until they're just about ready to break when they're in the red, and then convert them into scrap. Knives are excellent for stabbing a zombie when it's down. You know, it's useful in a Resident Evil game as always, but when you're not using them to save yourself from a zombie bite, shoot them in the head, push them over, and then stab it while it's on the ground. Now, it's one of the most effective methods for dealing with enemies in Grace's segments and remains an effective strategy for pretty much the entire game. Just don't let those knives break. It's still a survival horror game after all. Ammo is a finite resource, and the more you have, the better. Just work smart. Now, down at number 2, in Requiem, the flashlight is on a toggle on the D-pad. That suggests that there are parts of the game where you'll want to turn the light off versus on, but it's not entirely clear how or where. Well, we did a little testing with the flashlight to see what actually works and how it works, and we've concluded that for the most part, you're free to leave the flashlight on. Like, zombies do not react to the light one way or the other. There is one enemy in the game who seems like they do notice when the flashlight is on, and that's the girl, the big monster stalker lady. If you're shining a light on her, even if she's got her back to you, she will then turn around and spot you. Overall, it seems like the girl is one of the more sensitive enemies in the game. Like, they're not blind, so they can just see you if they're facing you, and they react to sound and sight. They're so reactive that a lot of the time, it's better to just run away from them than try and sneak around them. They're actually a little slower than they look, most of the time. It's a little deceptive, but running is often the safer option. Just get away and then go to a brightly lit area, and you're usually safe. There are situations where you'll want to avoid her attention though, and for those segments, just staying low and turning off your flashlight, because they will react, it makes it a lot harder for it to detect you. Now, down at number 1, there is a point where Rhodes Hill becomes a whole lot more dangerous. There's an abrupt moment where Grace's chapter just gets a lot more difficult. But if you want, you can hold off on triggering it as long as you want, as long as you avoid progressing the story. At a certain point, zombies start coming back to life as blister heads. Think Crimson Heads from the old days. Like, they're tougher, more aggressive, and are just all around way more annoying to deal with. But you can avoid having to confront them for as long as possible, as long as you don't do one very specific thing. So at a certain point early in the story, you have to get corrosive acid as an item to unlock the chest with the sun symbol on it. If you never pick up the corrosive acid and never go back to the room where you were supposed to use it, then the blister heads will never wake up, it seems. So at least for a little while, you'll get to free roam the clinic without having to deal with the zombies coming back to life and being way more dangerous. If you're playing the game normally, then this cutscene kind of comes out of nowhere. It's designed to catch you off guard. But if you know it's coming, then you can plan ahead and wait to trigger it and just explore all the segments of the facility you want before being forced to deal with these assholes. But those are 10 beginner tips for Resident Evil Requiem, some things the game doesn't tell you. If you find survival horror or these types of games a little intimidating, hopefully this helps a little bit. Like I said, old veterans, you guys don't care, you know what you're getting yourselves into, but hopefully this helped some of you, some things the game doesn't point out for you. If you like this video, clicking the like button helps us out, we really appreciate it. Also, be sure to check out our Before You Buy. We did on Resident Evil Requiem. We do a thorough review of it. I like the game very, very much as an old school Resident Evil fan, but let's talk about that. Good luck out there avoiding spoilers, have fun, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.